Like, this slide pin should not take effort like that to get it out. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the program. In today's show, where we have why is my car's brakes squeaking after I just had them done, we have this Toyota Kluger. Now I know what you're all thinking, Andrew, where have you been? Well, unfortunately for me, I have had an extreme amount of technical difficulties last week with filming, and I have unfortunately smashed this camera. So we're back on the phone, but we're getting some good footage today. So what we've got here essentially is the following. Customer messaged me and said, hey, I need some front and rear brake pads and rotors. I need a service done, or more specifically just engine and oil filter change, because she already had a full service done. I believe it was like less than 5,000 Ks ago, and that includes spark plugs, all the filters, this, that, the other. Also, she's just moved from the Northern Territory to Queensland. But what's happened is she took it in Darwin to get a full service and her brakes done, and for some reason she said it was quoted at being about $1,900. I don't know if the prices are different up in Darwin, you can tell me, but that's quite a bit. Anyway, issues we're having is the brakes are squeaking apparently, and I'm going to take you guys for a test drive to see what exactly is going on. From there, we're going to jump in and check out the front and rear brake pads and rotors. We're going to change the oil and filter. So, fingers crossed it is. So let's look at it. So here's the rear brakes. Now I don't know if you guys are picking that up, but bit of damage to this rear rotor. Now if you're an absolute geek when it comes to brakes like I am, this brand is, I believe, the Caliper brand super cheap cells. And I believe this is the same for the front brakes here. Now when I say she had the brakes done, she had them pad slapped, and essentially, look, you can get away with pad slapping some brakes sometimes. You take it for a spin, make sure it's performing correctly, make sure the rotors are still inspected, there's no damage to them. But what I'm going to do is, I discussed it with her, we are going to check the fronts out, because I looked at the fronts. The fronts have heaps of meat on the brake pads, and she said they are performing correctly, but it does have a bit of an iffy pedal feel, which will go through, bleed out when I check everything, and then make sure that it's feeling exactly the way it's supposed to. But what I'm thinking is, I might clean the fronts, have a look at them. Obviously, if I see something that I'm like, whoa, we need to change it, we'll change it. But I think it's a bit of a hack job up the front, because nothing looks like it's been cleaned. I'm surprised if anything's been greased, and it might be a factor that someone has broken that bleed nipple and then mucked up compressing everything and let some air in the lines to give us this soft pedal feel. Now, main thing we're going to work out is making sure that we can get this pedal feeling right, because there are many things. It's not just air in the line, it's not just a faulty master cylinder, it's not ABS, this, that, the other. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure, go through the brakes, make sure they have been installed correctly with all the fine little details you guys know I do. But before that, let's go for a spin. Now, on initial feel, I do feel like it is actually a little bit soft, as in, it's not so much the pedal feel, I should say, it's more at the time in which that it responds. Like, it responds about almost halfway down, so that's not very good. But what is good is that she did tell me that before she had the brakes done, it felt better. So yeah, no, something's wrong. It's got air in the lines or something. I can feel it now. Takes a couple of pumps before you get any decent kind of pedal feel. What can happen as well is, because in terms of squeaking, obviously a lot of dirt, debris, this, that, the other will create those kinds of problems. But if the actual piston in the caliper has some air behind it, it will not decompress properly, so then the pad actually keeps touching the rotor. Now, like I mentioned, these were pad slapped, so sometimes you can get the squeaking from the actual lip of the rotor touching, but yeah, 100% they touch. It's been touched. Like, I'm not a hater. You guys know I'm a positive guy, and I'm not hating. I'm just telling you the facts. I wish I could record my foot and how low it's going. In fact, I will record my foot and show you how low it's going. All right, so here we go. Nothing, 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 something, 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 stop. So, as you can see, there is some air in the lines, but luckily I have a pressure bleeder and we can definitely get the air out. But we'll need to go over them, have a look. We might need to use some stuff. Like I said, we'll probably change the rear pads and rotors, just considering that rotor is damaged, and then we'll give everything a good clean up the front with the front brake pads and rotors, then give it a bleed, then change the engine oil and filter, and from there go for another drive. So let's go back and do all this stuff. So yes, Miss Customer, you are correct. Your brakes are feeling really soft. It seems to me that the only way this could have happened is a lot of the times people will crack the actual bleeder on the brake caliper itself to compress the piston. The reason they do this is because, well, most people do it because they want to push the old fluid out the brake caliper and then thus pushing fresh fluid from the reservoir down. But if you stuff this up, and from the stories you've told me, which we will not divulge, but if you've had somewhat inexperienced people working on it, they can let a lot of air in the system really quickly. Let me ask you a question. Was it feeling like that before you had the pads done, or no? No. No, it wasn't. Yeah. These Toyotas are awesome. They shouldn't feel like that. It should be touch, bang, oh, we're on. Yeah. So that's what it will feel like by the time I'm done, because it's the only thing they could have done. Like, and the reality is, unless they've stuffed something else up, which it won't be, it should just be a bit of air in the lines, and then I'll easily get that out. But I'll start from the back, because the way you got to do it is you got to bleed the rear left, rear right, front left, front right, because if you don't do it in that sequence, you can trap air the wrong way around in, which again, some people don't know, and they might screw it up. But anyway, back to the video. All right, so here we're looking at the brake pads and rotors. As you guys can see, this horrible indentations, swirling marks on the actual rotor. But something else I noticed which is a bit peculiar, and this could be the air issue we're having. This should not move like this after the pistons have been compressed, or might even be a loose bolt somewhere. Alright, so we're going to be going from this angle today because, as mentioned, my camera's broken, so I can't get you the best shots. But essentially what we're looking at here is the overview of everything. We're going to be inspecting through here, but it's one of those situations, this is really dirty. You guys know I'm pedantic about cleaning all this kind of stuff. This brake caliper mounting bracket hasn't been cleaned. These slides may have been done, but something's going on here with this actual caliper's moving a bit too excessively. Yeah, so this is why we're going to go over it. We're going to change the rears like I mentioned, and then jump at the front. So a couple of bolts here. All right, so these two bolts are out, so we're going to be removing the brake caliper. Now, like I said, these haven't used too much, but something's going on here. You see the way here, like these are either really the cheapest ones. These are these like red caliber brand, whatever, but it is extremely damaged. Like inside there, up the top here, around here, and not only that, potentially wearing somewhat unevenly. Not too bad though, but so the plot thickens. So this bottom slide is stuck, as you can see. So this one's kind of moving solid. This one is stuck. Why this is? Let's have a look. So, apparently changed 5,000 Ks ago. Way too much grease on it. And I don't know what sort of grease they use, but it's a bit how you going. So, keep that in mind. So this caliper mounting bracket, judging by how tight that was and the crack it made, that sound, was not taken off. And there you go. That is filthy. This was not cleaned, point blank period. Hey, look, it happens. Point is, we're going to give it a clean. You guys know what I'm about to do to this. It's going to be a massive difference before and after. So I'm actually going to clean this now. So this is the before. So the point is, you got to ask yourself, where is this brake dust going to go, the new brake dust, if the old brake dust isn't on there? The answer is where this old brake dust is. And what happens? You get your squeaks, your uneven brake pad wear, things aren't moving properly. And you can just see this is just the old stuff, and look at the difference there in that. Number one, give that a clean as best you can. Brake cleaner, wipe it down, shut this back on. That is already, compared to that, a million times better. That is combined with cleaning and re-greasing this slide pin. And for effect, here is the after, so you can see a bit better of a visual comparison. Grab the correct grease. This is the Bendix stuff. Now, don't go crazy. Just throw about that much, and then look. And then you're good. This one goes on the bottom. Now this rubber is slightly swollen, but we're going to see how it sits when I put it in the housing. And as you can see, it's moving freely. That's what you want. Let it move freely, because this will make the pads move freely, thus having longevity in the braking system. Done. Now that this is done, we can put it to the side and everything's organized, so then when we reinstall it, we're good to go. Time to take this brake rotor off. Now, the shoes are actually in the hub, which when you push that brake pedal down, it pushes the shoes out, in, out. Sometimes they come off really easy, sometimes they're difficult to come off. If they're difficult to come off, this little rubber grommet here, you can pull that out and then you can loosen the shoes off, but we'll see how they feel. Rubber mallet, bang, bang. It should come off. If it doesn't come off, you've got these screw holes here. You can chuck some screws in to push them off, but gauge how tight the actual brake drum is, or the brake shoes are, and remember to put the handbrake down before you do this, or it will never come off. So that's popped up a bit. Inside of here, there'll be like a lip sometimes built into here. Not really as common as if it was an actual drum brake on like a ute or something, but if it gets caught up, just either loosen it off or keep playing around with it until it comes off. Like so. Thus, we have the brake rotor off. You can see all of this dust in here, and also this is needing to be changed. Because this, it's hard for you guys to see, but it ain't wearing properly. The brake shoes, generally speaking, you don't really need to change brake shoes as long as you don't drive around with the handbrake on. So give this a clean. From there, start to reinstall everything. Spray down the brake shoes themselves. Give them a little wipe. Get any of this excess buildup out of the way. Spray down the backing plate. Wipe that down. We have to clean the face of the hub. The reason we're doing this is so it sits flush, it doesn't have any runouts, sticking issues, etc. So this is what we're going to do. Take your wire brush and just go around like a crazy person. From there, when that's done, hit it with some brake clean and give it a little bit of a wipe. There, do yourself a favor, get some anti-seize, run it on the face of the hub, prevents any sticking of the actual brake rotor to the hub, anti-corrosion properties to it. Don't go crazy, that's enough, we don't want it to be flying everywhere. Alright, now it's time to reinstall the rotor. So what we're going to do is spray it down with some brake cleaner, because these rotors are covered in oil when they're in storage, so you have to remove this. And it is starting to rain on me, so we're going to speed this up. So wipe down with a clean rag, not an old rag, like this. And when you line this up, make sure to line it up over the actual port where in the hub where you can adjust the shoes. So there's a big hole here now. You can put it anywhere and it won't work if you do that. As in, you won't be able to adjust it without pulling the rotor off. Chuck that in, boom, done. Now, something we forgot to mention is this brake caliper. So we're going to compress this and then take some pliers, and then it won't compress because there's probably air behind it. Dang. We'll do that later, because it's starting to rain. I'm going to hide. Chuck this brake caliper mounting bracket back on. So being unable to compress this piston kind of confirms to me there's air in the lines. So we're going to do that now. I should be able to compress said piston a bit easier. And of course I can, because there was a bunch of air behind it. So now we're compressed. So we'll block this off, and then obviously we're going to bleed it later. And the rain stopped. Right, so quickly clean this brake caliper up. Another thing that was not done on this job is, if you can see, there are no brake pad wear indicators. What does this mean? This means that we don't know when it's time to change the brakes until they start grinding metal on metal. Because in these kits, you get the wear indicators in here. So chuck them on, eh? It helps the customer realize when they need to change them next. And just like that, we can now know when we need to change these next. Last little bit, small amount of grease on the back of the pads. This just prevents any sticking or uneven brake pad wear. A little bit on the ears of the pad, then we can reinstall. Look at how easy these pads move. This is what you want. You don't want them stuck on, so then you get horrible brake pad wear. If you're whacking them in with a hammer or something, it ain't gonna work. Chuck them in so then they're smooth. You'll get a better example on this side. Like this just wants to jump out. It's so loose now. So that's good. From there, we reinstall the brake caliper. If you touch the rotor in the process of installation, give it a spray down. Yes, it is still moving, but that's because I have not compressed the piston yet. Let me go push the pedal a few times. And again, we're going to do a bleed on this system just to make sure everything's good. But when I press the piston back into the actual brake caliper, I'll let it drip for a couple of seconds, somewhat gravity bleed, if you will. Then it helps the actual piston get full of fluid, so then it takes as much air out as possible. Again, we will be bleeding it, but now look at that. It has a slight bit of movement, but it's not flopping around at the bottom like it was before with that bolt. That was probably loose. That's what it's supposed to sound like. So this side's done. I'll bang out the other side and I'll see you guys at the front. So I'm just on this side real quick. This is what I'm talking about. You need to be able to get into the actual adjuster to loosen it off if it's too tight, because I was hitting this and it wasn't coming loose. So just chuck your screwdriver in there, have a listen, have a feel around. There it is. And then wind it down or up, whichever way is loosened on your side. And if you've wound it all the way off and it's still not coming off, you got to chuck these screws in here, like so. What we're checking here is, I've noticed something. I'm about to pull this front wheel off. The pads are kind of stuck, the caliper's stuck on a little bit. See what I mean? And that rear driver's side one I just did had a full load of air in it. Yeah, there's a lot of air in the system. I wouldn't be surprised if I just push the air out, let it gravity bleed briefly, chucked it back on. It would make a massive difference. And that's what I'm going to try and do. But obviously still go over it with the pressure bleeder. So, taking a look, as you can see, tons of meat on the outside pad. Decent amount on the inside. We'll have a better look once we're actually in there. Rotor isn't too bad. Doesn't really have a lip at all on it. So I think we should be able to give these a good little clean, throw it back together. When I say pad slapped, this is what they would have done. Ready? This is how they do it. Oh, isn't that easy? Pull the pad out, new pad in, and you're done. But look at this. Literally, that's what's happened. Crazy, man. Look at the caliper. Not even touched. As you saw my cleanliness, this is what I was just explaining to the camera. What one out. Old pad out, new pad in, done. money please. That's not how you do it. Like, and to be honest with you, not only did they do that, like the cheapest pads, the laziest way, and I'm big on being a glass half full kind of guy. Like, I'm not a negative person, but it is like, look, are you telling me that's been cleaned less than 5,000 Ks ago? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What the hell are we doing?
It's just walkable.
Yeah, look, this is not... Oh my God. I don't think so. I don't think so. Like, this slide pin should not take effort like that to get it out. It is not being done properly. This is a full blown hack job. Does that look greased?
Yeah, not at all.
Does that look like it was moving the way my rear ones move? Terrible. I don't like to be negative. I'm a positive person, but still, it is a bit of a shame. There's a silver lining to everything because my lovely customer has found me and now I will fix everything. Look, I do think we can get away with another point really quick, like the rears. There is no, they're not putting the brake pad wear indicators on them. What this means is, because my customer is right behind the camera, when your pads get low, how are you going to know it's time to change them? There's no squeak, there's no sound, you know what I'm saying? That little wear indicator sits here, and when it gets to about 2 mil, you hear a squeak, squeak, squeak. Oh, I better change my brakes. You won't hear that until grind. Oh, rotors are done. Terrible, terrible, terrible F. That's what I give that last job. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this brake caliper mounting bracket off and give it a good clean. Clean this brake caliper, and I'm also going to obviously crack the bleed nipple and let the air out because it probably has a lot of air in it. But this is proper backyard stuff. Yikes. We're going to compress the brake pistons. I sell this tool, Southside Mobile Brake Services. Hit the link in the bottom if you want one. There is literally like 10 left in my shed, so when they're gone, they're gone. I'll chuck this in here. We're going to compress this piston, but because of the nature of how terrible this job was, we're going to assume there's air in every single caliper. From there, don't worry if it's leaking a bit. I am not putting a bottle down, I'm catching it under there. What we're going to do is we're going to hold it upright actually. It's still dripping, you saw some air bubbles there now. Heaps of air bubbles, still gravity bleeding, air bubbles, air bubbles, air bubbles. No more air bubbles. Like I said, I reckon just doing it this way will make it feel a million times better. So now the piston is, or the brake caliper is full of fluid again. We can shut this down. We can tighten it down, don't go crazy. Shut the dust cap back on. Slightly spray down this area. But you'll see if you run into where this boot is sitting higher than the piston, like at the rear, that just means that there's a little bit of air behind this seal. Normally I would zoom in on this, but I don't have a good camera. But you know what it looks like. So the way you do it, you just chuck a little pick, pull it back a bit, pull it back a bit, let the air out, push it down, push it down. You might even hear the air escape. There's a little bit left. It's back in. The reason you do that is because you don't want this seal pinching on the back of their brake pads. Just check this out though. And as you can see, night and day difference. Spray it down with some brake clean. That's literally all the effort you need to put in to do the job half decent. Literally all the effort you need to put in. I'll throw this, maybe not there actually. Throw that there. And that's done. Now we're going to do this brake caliper mounting bracket. So this is what it looks like now. Remember to pull these clips off and do or clean underneath here. It literally just looks like this. Is somewhat of the after now. I'm not totally done, but just to give you an idea of what a massive difference it can make. Because that dust builds up so high that the pads cannot move. I'm surprised they could move, to be honest with you. But now we got to deal with the slide pins. That's about as clean as we're going to get it. Don't be too worried about the discoloration. It's really quite smooth now. Again, you don't have to go crazy heavy with it, but do put a decent film over it. That's what you want it to do by itself. Not be crazy. And this is just literally 2 fingers. That's how smooth it has to go. Oh, that's how smooth it has to go. Same with the bottom one. I'm not sure about these pads. I assume they're supposed to have them. Some pads actually, when it gets really low, has like this metallic design where then it starts to screech. I just told her, hey, listen, next service, we'll just keep checking up on it, checking up on it, checking up on it, and keeping an eye on it, because she doesn't really do too many big Ks in this car anymore. So we should be good to go. So I'll give these a clean and then let's reinstall them. Put them back in the same position we took them out. So as in, this one was on the outside. Again, we'll chuck a little bit of grease here. When we reinstall, they move nice and freely. Now, because they did such low Ks, they seem to be wearing evenly enough. So we should be good there. So throw this back on. All right, wheels back on, pump the pedal. Let's see how it feels. You see, when the caliper is not stuck on because there's air, pads can't move, it moves freely now. Well, it's performing exactly the way it's supposed to. Look, a couple of fingers are moving it, you know what I mean? Instead of stuck, 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 stuck. But you saw those pins. When those pins don't move, that's what happens. All right, I'm gonna do the other side. See how the pedal feels after that and see if we even need to bleed it. If we do, we will. If not, go for a spin, see how it feels, and then do this oil. All right, change of plans. I'm going to change this oil filter first. Got the new O-ring. What I like to do is just chuck on a bit of grease on the O-ring. You can use some engine oil, whatever you want. I've been doing this lately. Well, been doing this lately and it seems to be doing pretty good. So chuck that on. So we're gonna go pen right, Ryco. I'm gonna throw this back in, chuck the new engine oil in. It now. I took it for a spin. It felt way better, as you can imagine, after all that, but it wasn't up to my standards. So just ran the pressure bleeder through it, and now I'm going to see how it feels and go for a spin. All right, just finished doing a test drive with the customer. I mean, like, I went through everything. You guys know what I do. I do the few emergency stops, the few kind of slow crawl, Macca's run type things. Everything sounds sweet. Everything feels a million times better pedal feel. But of course, it's like I always say, as long as my customers are happy, I'm happy. So we're going to go for a spin with the customer now.
It feels much better.
Much better.
Yeah.
It did feel better when I just gravity bled it, but there's nothing compared to just pressure bleeding it.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
My foot's not touching the ground just to brake a little.
There you go. Foot's not touching the ground. That's always a good sign. Now again, you guys saw we kept those original brake pads, but I did clean everything up. It's one of those situations where we're going to see how we go. There was no issues with the rotors that I got from the customer. There's not shaking, grinding, anything like that. There's no excessive wear like we saw on the rear brakes. So at the end of the day, I'm going to be back here in 10,000 Ks to do another service on the vehicle. Obviously this wasn't an exact full-on service because she already got it done, but she wanted me to have another look. So that's done there. Anyway, I'm going to end this video. But anyway, customer, last words, you happy?
Very happy, thank you.
Very happy, all right, but you already knew that. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, check out the other stuff. If you want to get in contact with me, hit up this page here, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.